This evening, it is our privilege and our honor to welcome a great governor of a great state. Most of us have probably lived elsewhere in this nation under God. But for some reason, we're all here right now for a purpose. And I believe it is to make this the best state it's ever been. And tonight we welcome a governor who is committed to helping us do exactly that. So let us welcome to Pinehurst and the Village Chapel, the governor of North Carolina, Pat McCrory.
Thank you all very much. What a beautiful day in Pinehurst, North Carolina. I just played 15 holes of golf this afternoon with my good friend John Guevara, the Secretary of Environment, and we actually got some time off and we left on the 15th hole. Thankfully, we left on the 15th hole because we left on the 15th hole, I broke 100. You know, during the past 7 days, like during the past year, I have been so fortunate to travel this great state. In fact, in the past 7 days, I have visited an elementary school in Union County where I got to see some incredible elementary school teachers make a difference to kids and exceed all expectations on how well those kids are doing in school. And those kids are doing way beyond the state average and the national average. And when you see these teachers and the principal and the superintendent, you see their pride. And then shortly thereafter, I got to go to the Research Triangle Park and meet with incredible employees of a company called Cisco, where my Secretary of Commerce has done a great job during the past year, Sharon Decker, who's in the audience, in recruiting new jobs in North Carolina and trying to get existing jobs to expand in North Carolina. And I get to go make the announcements and get all the credit for Sharon's work. But when we announced 550 new jobs, you saw the pride in the employees because they made the difference in ensuring that the company wanted to continue to grow right here in North Carolina. And had those employees not done a good job and showed their talent, that company would have either left or at least not grown here, right here in North Carolina. And then during the next day, I got to go to Kernersville and visit a military memorial that was just from a grassroots effort. They built a beautiful military monument where they had World War II veterans, Korean veterans, Vietnam veterans, Gulf War veterans, veterans from every war. And you saw their emotion. And I got to hug some of the World War II generation veterans, and I felt like I was hugging my father again, who passed away over 20 years ago. And it was the greatest feeling of my life, getting to hug these men and feel their pride. And then, just this past several days, I went way up into Murphy, North Carolina, where I got to see members of our military and members of our Department of Health and Human Services and Department of Social Services there in Murphy area, way, way up in the mountains near the Georgia border, help poor people with basic dentistry care and optometrist care, people that are suffering like you can't imagine, people whose teeth were completely rotted and obviously had not seen a dentist in 10, 20, 30 years. And because of that, many of them were having heart disease because if you have bad teeth, most likely you will have a bad heart. And you saw these volunteers, both from the military who had served in Iraq and Afghanistan and people from our own department and state government, giving it their all 12 hours a day. And they're doing it as we speak today up in the mountains to help these very, very poor rural people who are traveling as far as 10 to 12 hours to get this free care. And then also last night in Asheville, I went to a food bank fundraising event. And even at that event, I had some people who did not like my policies. And one man was screaming at me, and I finally said, come on, let's talk. You don't need to scream at me. I'm human. We can agree to disagree. And we had a wonderful conversation about fracking at a food bank event. But once we saw and talked to each other, we felt a common bond, and it became a conversation instead of a yelling match. The reason I'm bringing up these three things is because, first of all, I had to recognize three things during all those events during the past 7 days. The first is, as governor, I have to recognize that I'm inside the ropes. Isn't that an appropriate term for a golf tournament coming up? I'm inside the ropes, and people are looking at me with the title of governor to do something and to listen to them and to find solutions. And I also have to realize that in a moment's notice, I can be outside the ropes. In fact, in 2008, when I ran for governor, my wife and I woke up the morning after the election in the Hilton Hotel, which was supposed to be the victory suite of the new governor. But when we woke up, reality set in. I had spent 365 days with no job, spending our savings, trying to run for governor, and I failed. And we woke up, and I asked my wife, do you want to shower here, or do you want to go back home and get dressed and shower there? And she said, let's go home. And so I picked up all her luggage and her dresses, and we walked out to the hotel elevators, and I was carrying the dresses like this, and I hit the button of the elevator, and it opened up, and all of a sudden I dropped everything, just dropped it. And she said, what's wrong? And I said, we don't have a ride home. Everyone had left. You know, for 365 days, I had all these people around me expecting me to be the next governor. But all of a sudden, I was outside the ropes and then had to determine, what am I going to do now? And it was a constant reminder to me, because I'd been a mayor for 14 years, that in a moment's notice, you can be outside the ropes. And yet you can still try to influence those decision makers and those having an influence. And while we're here at Pinehurst this week, recognize there are golfers right now who are going to be playing Thursday and Friday, and if they miss a 2-foot putt on Friday, they might miss the cut by 1 hole, and the next day they will not be invited to be inside the ropes. They will be cheering from outside the ropes and trying to influence the outcome in other ways, and hopefully show respect to the other golfers, like I need to show respect to people who defeat me for whatever political office might be. Show respect for the position of those people inside the ropes, while either cheering or jeering them, but always do it in a respectful way. The second thing that I've realized is this, during the past 7 days, as actually over 365 days as governor now, and that is this, is enjoy the moment. No matter how long your day or how rough your day is, enjoy the moment. I'm reminded of this by an old friend of mine who died about 4 months ago. His name was Jack Hawk. He was my political advisor from 2008 to 2012. And sadly, he died of cancer. And he was with me till the very end. And one day, while on the campaign trail, I called him up, thoroughly depressed, thoroughly tired of the criticism, tired of the media, tired of the travel, tired of the gruesome fundraising, and just wondered, why am I doing this, and why can't I go see my wife and spend more time with her as opposed to being on the road? And all of a sudden, Jack said, Pat, enjoy the moment. Look what you're getting to do. Look at the opportunity you have. Look at the people you're getting to meet and the travels you're getting to exhibit. And you see this beautiful state from Murphy to Manteo to Pinehurst. Enjoy the moment. No matter how hard it is, enjoy the moment. And so I just want to let you know that as governor, during the toughest times and the longest days, and during the incredible opportunities to go to the White House and to work with great people like I do in the front row here, I always think of Jack and I say, enjoy the moment. Enjoy the moment, even during the toughest time. And the last thing I have to remind myself as governor is this, is that just because you're behind a dais does not make you any smarter or any more special than the people that you're speaking down to, because you're really not speaking down to them. And the dilemma with these dioceses, whether you're a minister or a politician or an entertainer, is there's a temptation to think that your IQ goes up just because you're behind this dais. I had one of my secretaries recently who testified in front of a House Senate committee in Raleigh, and she said, those people interviewing me and think they're so much smarter than me because they're speaking behind a dais and I'm just at a table answering their questions. It's a terrible trap that we get into because of a title that we're given. And what my message to myself and my message to you is, let's be sure we don't get all caught up in the title and the dais. And the person who taught me that lesson the most was a man by the name of Billy Graham. And it was a wake-up lesson in 1995. I was the brand new mayor of Charlotte, and I was invited to a Billy Graham crusade at Erickson Football Stadium in downtown Charlotte. 72,000 people. And myself and the then Governor David Beasley from South Carolina and Billy Graham got into a golf cart underneath the stadium, and next thing I know, they were driving us out to this giant stage. And as we drove out, the thousands of people started applauding and taking pictures. And of course, it was all about Billy Graham, but the two politicians in the golf cart started waving and cheering and going like this and taking it all in and believing it. And then all of a sudden, Billy Graham turned to me and he says, you know, I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed. And I said, what's that about, sir? He says, these people think it's about me, and it's not about me. Well, immediately, myself and Governor Beasley pulled down our hands. He got it. And the dilemma with all of us, whether your title is a mom or a dad or an uncle or a manager or a minister or a governor or a secretary, is don't start believing it's about you. Now, what do these three things have to do with faith and talking about this inside a beautiful, beautiful sanctuary with beautiful music? One thing, when we talk about inside the ropes, as I talk about my faith on Tuesday mornings in a Bible study with a group of people who are none of the others in my study group are politicians, because if you talk with other politicians, we only tend to talk about ourselves. I've learned very quickly in my faith that you can't be part-time in your faith. You have to always be inside the ropes in your faith. You can't be secular. You can't go, well, sometimes I'm going to be here and sometimes I'm going to be there. And it's got to be from within. And I think the golfers understand that. They have to keep practicing. If they make a mistake and they miss the cut, guess what? They have to go back to the practice range and try again. And we have to do that in our faith as we occasionally trip up and think bad things or do bad things. We've got to remember what our faith is all about and step back in the ropes, ask for forgiveness, and then try again. And hopefully we won't repeat that mistake. The second thing is enjoying the moment. And when you think of enjoying the moment, the best word I think of is the word grace. Because the word grace reminds me that we have far more than we ever deserve. All of us in this room have more than we deserve. I have so much more than I deserve. And so when I am complaining about my long hours or the tough decisions or the people yelling at me or my wife not seeing enough of me and things of this nature, I have to remind myself, boy, get your feet back on the ground and remember you have so much more than you deserve, and don't start believing this other stuff. It's all about grace and mercy. And the last thing is, it's not about us. It's about something much bigger than us. And so when I get caught up in the ego of politics and power and ego, which does happen in politics like it happens in every form of life, I have to remind myself of my faith and go, it's not about us. It's about something much, much bigger, and the world doesn't revolve around us or the people speaking behind this dais. And I'm sure the minister here would say that also. It's around our Creator, which has given us this opportunity of both grace and mercy. Now, I forget these three things often while being governor, and I ask you to remind me of these three things as I travel the state and have the wonderful opportunity to work for the greatest state in the United States of America, a state with beauty, a state with unlimited resources, a state with incredible people. And let's give thanks to that every single day. Thank you, and may God continue to bless you, this great state, and our wonderful nation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you, Governor. And just as Stephen, our church musician, showed us a different perspective on himself this evening, thank you for showing us this side of you. Appreciate it.